Welcome back to Bread, Bible reading every day, day 71. We're going to finish out Joshua today. Whenever I say that, it just really excites me because here we are, just barely into March, entering the first of the second week of March. Here we are, and we finished 6 books of the Bible already. So if you think something is impossible, that you cannot do it, look how easily this has been done. And it's all been in 20 minutes or less, maybe a couple minutes over on a couple of them, but all in 20 minutes or less of us reading through the Bible together every single day. So I'm just so jazzed about this. We're completing our 6th book of the Bible today, and tomorrow we will begin in Judges, which is going to be a fun and fascinating read as well. But today, as we finish out Joshua, it's finishing out with the land, the eastern tribes returning. Joshua's last words, that he's going to speak, just like Moses gave, Moses, as we finished out Deuteronomy, it was Moses' longest sermon ever. And then Joshua's going to give his final words, and then we're going to see where the Lord's covenant is renewed as we finish out Joshua. So you're definitely going to want to highlight things. You're going to want to underline things in these next chapters, okay? And the Lord is speaking. Anytime the Lord speaks, I want that highlighted and read anyway. But you're definitely going to want to have several things that you're going to want to notate, maybe in the flyleaf of your Bible or on your notes, on your notepad, but definitely putting some things that are there and highlighting and underlining scripture that are powerful, because it's very powerful. Okay, Joshua chapter 22. I'm sorry, I had it on the wrong page. Then Joshua called together the tribes of Reuben, Gad, and the half-tribe of Manasseh. He told them, "You have done as Moses, the servant of the Lord, commanded you, and you have obeyed every order I have given you. During all this time you have not deserted the other tribes. You've been careful to obey the commands of the Lord your God right up to the present day." Now remember, these are the ones that already had the land on the other side, and they came over to help fight for the lands for the rest of the tribes. "And now the Lord your God has given the other tribes rest, as he promised them. So go back home to the land that Moses, the servant of the Lord, gave you as your possession on the east side of the Jordan River. But be very careful," and here's an admonition, "be very careful to obey all the commands and the instructions that Moses gave to you. Love the Lord your God. Walk in all his ways. Obey his commands. Hold firmly to him and serve him with all your heart and soul." There's love the Lord your God. This you should be highlighting and underlining. Both. Highlighting and underlining. Circle it. This is key. All right. Love the Lord your God. Walk in all his ways. Obey his commands. Hold firmly to him and serve him with all your heart and soul. There's 5 things that are given right there. 5 things that are powerful. That needs to be in our heart, that we're doing that every day, that we love the Lord our God with all our heart, that we are walking in his ways, that we are obeying his commands, that we hold firmly to him, and that we serve him wholeheartedly with every part of our being. So Joshua blessed them and sent them away, and they went home. What a blessing, a powerful blessing that is. Moses had given the land of Bashan east of the Jordan River to the half-tribe of Manasseh. The other half-tribe was given land west of the Jordan. As Joshua sent them away and blessed them, he said to them, "Go back to your homes with the great wealth you have taken from your enemies, the vast herds of livestock, the silver, gold, bronze, and iron, and the large supply of clothing. Share the plunder with your relatives." Now you know that this is days, months, weeks, months. This is a long time. This wasn't just, they went over there and they did this. Their families are back home waiting for them to come back. And now they're going to come back with all sorts of goods, with much more blessing than what they left with. Many more things that are going to set up their household for a long time. So I just want you to realize that whenever you read these things, don't think that it just happened in just a little while. And also, as they're traveling back and they're traveling with all of this stuff, that doesn't just take a few hours of travel. We're talking days of travel that's going to take place here. And share the plunder. I love that. I love that. When we have blessings, maybe sometimes we should consider that plunder, although we didn't go out and take it from somebody. But maybe sometimes we just need to look at the blessings that God has given us, because the enemy does not want us to have it. So we share the plunder. We share the wealth with our relatives and share the blessings what God has given us. So the men of Reuben, Gad, and the half-tribe of Manasseh left the rest of Israel at Shiloh in the land of Canaan. They started the journey back to their own land of Gilead, the territory that belonged to them according to the Lord's command through Moses. But while they were still in Canaan, and when they came to a place called Gilgal, near the Jordan River, the men of Reuben, Gad, and the half-tribe of Manasseh stopped to build a large and imposing altar. The rest of Israel heard that the people of Reuben, Gad, and the half-tribe of Manasseh had built an altar at Gilgal at the edge of the land of Canaan on the west side of the Jordan River. So the whole community of Israel gathered at Shiloh and prepared to go to war against them. First, however, they sent a delegation led by Phinehas, son of Eleazar the priest, to talk with the tribes of Reuben, Gad, and the half-tribe of Manasseh. In this delegation were 10 leaders of Israel, one from each of the 10 tribes, and each the head of his family with the clans of Israel. When they arrived in the land of Gilead, they said to the tribes of Reuben, Gad, and the half-tribe of Manasseh, the whole community of the Lord demands to know why you are betraying the God of Israel. How could you turn away from the Lord and build an altar for yourselves in rebellion against him? Was our sin at Peor not enough? To this day we are not fully cleansed of it, even after the plague struck the entire community of the Lord. And yet today you are turning away from following the Lord. If you rebel against the Lord today, he will be angry with all of us tomorrow. Now listen up. If you need the altar because the land you possessed is defiled, then join us in the Lord's land where the tabernacle of the Lord is situated, and share our land with us. But do not rebel against the Lord or against us by building an altar other than the one true altar of the Lord our God. Didn't divine anger fall on the entire community of Israel when Achan, a member of the clan of Zerah, sinned by stealing the things set apart for the Lord? He was not the only one who died because of his sin. Now listen. Then the people of Reuben, Gad, and the half-tribe of Manasseh answered the heads of the clan of Israel. The Lord, the mighty one, is God. Underline that. The Lord, the mighty one, is God. They say it not once but twice. He knows the truth, and may Israel know it too. We have not built the altar in treacherous rebellion against the Lord. If we have done so, do not spare our lives this day. If we have built an altar for ourselves to turn away from the Lord, to offer burnt offerings or grain offerings or peace offerings, may the Lord himself punish us. The truth is, we have built this altar because we fear that in the future your descendants will say to ours, what right do you have to worship the Lord our God, the God of Israel? The Lord has placed the Jordan River as a barrier between our people and you people of Reuben and Gad. You have no claim to the Lord, so your descendants may prevent our descendants from worshiping the Lord. So we decided to build the altar not for burnt offerings or sacrifices, but as a memorial. It will remind our descendants and your descendants that we too have the right to worship the Lord at a sanctuary with our burnt offerings, sacrifices, and peace offerings. Then your descendants will not be able to say to ours, you have no claim to the Lord. If they say this, our descendants can reply, look at this copy of the Lord's altar that our ancestors made. It is not for burnt offerings or sacrifices. It is a reminder of the relationship both of us have with the Lord. Far be it from us to rebel against the Lord or turn away from him by building our own altar for burnt offerings, grain offerings, or sacrifices. Only the altar of the Lord our God that stands in front of the tabernacle may be used for that purpose. When Phinehas the priest and the leaders of the community, the heads of the clans of Israel, heard this from the tribe of Reuben, Gad, and the half-tribe of Manasseh, they were satisfied. Phinehas, son of Eleazar the priest, replied to them, today we know that the Lord is among us, because you have not committed this treachery against the Lord as we thought. Instead, you have rescued Israel from being destroyed by the hand of the Lord. And see, it's so important to have communication. It's so important what's going on. And this was something that they were doing to protect the generations to come, so that nothing could be said that they didn't belong as a part of this tribe. They all, even though they were on the other side of the Jordan, they were on the east side of the Jordan, they wanted it known that they were still a part of this big family of God. Then Phinehas, son of Eleazar, the priest, and the other leaders left the tribes of Reuben and Gad and Gilead and returned to the land of Canaan to tell the Israelites what had happened. And all the Israelites were satisfied and praised God and spoke no more of war against Reuben and Gad. The people of Reuben and Gad named the altar Witness, for they said, it is a witness between us and them that the Lord is our God too. I love that they wanted to make sure that they laid claim to the Lord. They made sure. That's what we need to do. We need to make sure that we lay claim to the Lord. That in what we do, people know. And sometimes we need to have an altar in our home. We need to have an altar in different places, not for sacrifices, but an altar to the Lord. That we bow before Him. That people know that we lay claim to the Lord. Because the Lord has laid claim to us. Chapter 23, and this is Joshua's final words to Israel. The years passed, and the Lord had given the people of Israel rest from all their enemies. Notice, the years passed. Joshua, who was now very old, called together all the elders, leaders, judges, and officers of Israel. He said to them, I am now a very old man. You have seen everything the Lord your God has done for you during my lifetime. The Lord, which, by the way, Joshua and Caleb are the only ones from the original, that got to cross over into the promised land. So all of these, it's all been done during their lifetime, his lifetime. The Lord your God has fought for you against your enemies. I have allotted to you as your homeland all the land of the nations yet unconquered, as well as the land of those we have already conquered, from the Jordan River to the Mediterranean Sea in the west. Remember, He's already allotted the lands that are yet unconquered. You know what? God has already given us things in battles that we have yet to conquer, but God's already given us victory. Hold on to that and know that. Know that God has always gone before you, and if you believe that God goes before you, you pray that God orders your steps, then you better believe that when you get there, God is already there. So whatever you face, God is already there. You're not left alone. You are not left alone. I don't care if you're faced with a bad diagnosis. I've been diagnosed with cancer 3 times. I don't care if you get a bad diagnosis. I don't care if you have a tragedy that happens. You got to know that God is already there. He is with you. He will not leave you. He will not forsake you. He will be with you through times of trouble, just as He is with you through times of joy and happiness. But God is especially present and ever present in times of trouble. This land will be yours, for the Lord your God will Himself drive out the people living there now. You will take possession of their land, just as the Lord your God promised you. So be very careful to follow everything Moses wrote in the book of instruction. Do not deviate from it, turning either to the right or to the left. Make sure you do not associate with the other people still remaining in the land. Do not even mention the names of their gods, much less swear by them or serve them or worship them. Rather, cling tightly to the Lord your God, as you have done until now. For the Lord has driven out great power and powerful nations for you, and no one has yet been able to defeat you. Each one of you will put to flight 1,000 of the enemy, for the Lord your God fights for you, just as He has promised. So be very careful to love the Lord your God. But if you turn away from Him and cling to the customs of the survivors of these nations remaining among you, and if you intermarry with them, then know for certain that the Lord your God will no longer drive them out of your land. Instead, they will be a snare and a trap to you, a whip for your backs and thorny brambles in your eyes, and you will vanish from this good land that the Lord your God has given you. And we know that this does begin to happen, that they did turn away. And as the generations go on, and it becomes very easy, and especially when you're living in the lap of luxury, or you're living in contentment and everything is going well for you, it's very easy to forget what the blessings that you have, what has been done for you, because you're not in times of trial or tribulation. That's why we need to always be reading the Bible, always praying, always in relationship with God, so that we do have that constant reminder of what God is doing in our lives, who God is in our lives, what He will continue to do, what He has kept us from, what He is preparing us for, and what He is doing in us now. Soon I will die, going the way of everything on earth. Deep in your hearts you know that every promise of the Lord your God has come true. Not a single one has failed. But as surely as the Lord your God has given you the good things He promised, He will also bring disaster on you if you disobey Him. He will completely destroy you from this good land He has given you. If you break the covenant of the Lord your God by worshiping and serving other gods, His anger will burn against you, and you will quickly vanish from the good land He has given you. Chapter 24. Then Joshua summoned all the tribes of Israel to Shechem, including their elders, leaders, judges, and officers. So they came and presented themselves to God. Joshua said to the people, "This is what the Lord, the God of Israel, says. Long ago your ancestors, including Terah, the father of Abraham, and Nahor, lived beyond the Euphrates River, and they worshipped other gods. But I took your ancestor Abraham from the land beyond the Euphrates and led him to the land of Canaan. I gave him many descendants through his son Isaac. To Isaac I gave Jacob and Esau. To Esau I gave the mountains of Seir, while Jacob and his children went down into Egypt. Then I sent Moses and Aaron, and I brought terrible plagues on Egypt, and afterward I brought you out as a free people. But when your ancestors arrived at the Red Sea, the Egyptians chased after you with chariots and charioteers. When your ancestors cried out to the Lord, I put darkness between you and the Egyptians. I brought the sea crashing down on the Egyptians, drowning them. With your very own eyes you saw what I did. Then you lived in the wilderness for many years. Finally, I brought you into the land of the Amorites on the east side of the Jordan. They fought against you, but I destroyed them before you. I gave you victory over them, and you took possession of their land. Then Balak, son of Zippor, king of Moab, started a war against Israel. He summoned Balaam, son of Beor, to curse you, but I would not listen to him. Instead, I made Balaam bless you, and so I rescued you from Balak. And you know, that is one of my favorite stories in the Bible. I have many, and that is one of them, because I love when the donkey talks, and he doesn't even recognize it. When you crossed the Jordan River and came to Jericho, the men of Jericho fought against you, as did the Amorites, the Perizzites, the Canaanites, the Hittites, and the Girgashites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites. But I gave you victory over them. And I sent terror ahead of you to drive out the 2 kings of the Amorites. It was not your swords or bows that brought you victory. I gave you land you had not worked on, and I gave you towns you did not build. The towns where you are now living, I gave you vineyards and olive groves for food, though you did not plant them. So fear the Lord and serve him wholeheartedly. Put away forever the idols your ancestors worshipped when they lived beyond the Euphrates River and in Egypt. Serve the Lord alone. But if you refuse to serve the Lord, then choose today whom you will serve. As for me and my house, we serve the Lord. Would you prefer the gods your ancestors served beyond the Euphrates, or will it be the gods of the Amorites in whose land you now live? But as for me and my house, as for me and my family, we will serve the Lord. Choose you this day whom you will serve. As for me and my family, we will serve the Lord. The people replied, we would never abandon the Lord and serve other gods, for the Lord our God is the one who rescued us and our ancestors from slavery in the land of Egypt. He performed mighty miracles before our very eyes. As we traveled through the wilderness among our enemies, he preserved us. It was the Lord who drove out the Amorites and the other nations living here in the land, so we too will serve the Lord, for he alone is our God. Now they did get to witness some miracles, but they were not among those who were originally, who were originally freed from slavery. That is why they continue to tell them, make sure you tell the story so that your children will know, so your children's children will know that this will be carried on for generations. But these are a part of those that were still part of traveling through the wilderness for 40 years. But they were not from the original. These are those that were born during that time of travel. Then Joshua warned the people, you are not able to serve the Lord your God, for he is a holy and jealous God. He's not jealous of things. Understand that. God is not jealous in the way that you and I would know jealousy. God is jealous for you. So be zealous for him. He wants your attention. He wants your attention so that he can open those windows of heaven, so that he can give those blessings, so he can provide for you what he has for you. That's why he wants your attention. He doesn't need it. He wants it. And he wants it for you. He will not forgive your rebellion and your sins. If you abandon the Lord and serve other gods, he will turn against you and destroy you, even though he has been so good to you. But the people answered Joshua, no, we will serve the Lord. You are a witness to your own decision, Joshua said. You have chosen to serve the Lord. Yes, they replied, we are witnesses to what we have said. All right then, Joshua said, destroy the idols among you and turn your hearts to the Lord, the God of Israel. The people said to Joshua, we will serve the Lord our God. We will obey him alone. So Joshua made a covenant with the people that day at Shechem, committing them to follow the decrees and regulations of the Lord. Joshua recorded these things in the book of God's instructions. Right here. As a reminder of their agreement, he took a huge stone and rolled it beneath the terebinth tree beside the tabernacle of the Lord. Now, I have not looked up what the terebinth tree is, but I'm going to now, because there's always a reason that certain trees are chosen. There's always a reason that certain places are chosen. So look up for yourselves, research on the terebinth tree, and then write this in your Bible. Why the terebinth tree? Beneath the terebinth tree, beside the tabernacle of the Lord. Joshua said to all the people, this stone has heard everything that the Lord has said to us. It will be a witness to testify against you if you go back on your word to God. A stone. You know, it says that if we don't worship the Lord, even the rocks will cry out. That's never going to have to happen. I don't believe that will ever have to happen. But that's what God says. So that stone right there is a witness for them. Then Joshua sent all the people away to their own homelands. After this, Joshua, son of Nun, the servant of the Lord, died at the age of 110. They buried him in the land he had been allocated at Timnath-Serah in the hill country of Ephraim, north of Mount Gaash. The people of Israel served the Lord throughout the lifetime of Joshua and of the elders who outlived him, those who had personally experienced all that the Lord had done for Israel. The bones of Joseph, which the Israelites had brought along with them when they left Egypt, were buried at Shechem, in the parcel of ground Jacob had bought from the sons of Hamor for 100 pieces of silver. This land was located in the territory allotted to the descendants of Joseph. Eleazar, son of Aaron, also died, and Eleazar was the priest. He was buried in the hill country of Ephraim in the towns of Gibeah, which had been given to his son Phinehas. And there we close out Joshua, knowing that every promise that the Lord had given was fulfilled to the children of Israel. Every promise that the Lord gives to you, he will fulfill. God not only has to keep his promises, he wants to keep his promises. Okay, join us again tomorrow for day 72 as we begin in the book of Judges. I'll see you again tomorrow, you guys. I'm so excited for you. Bye-bye.